It is fine. So Kavya in the chart saying that I followed all the steps you explained to create a Docker image, but I'm facing an issue with mobile system. Please help. Is Kavya there in the call?
Yes, sir, I'm there.
Yes, yes. So the first thing is we did not create Docker image. That's the first thing. You may be confusing. The
Okay.
creation of the Docker image, we will learn it. So you mean to say you could not install Docker in your machine, is it?
No, like when I'm trying to use this mobile extern, it's giving an error.
If it is handy, can you please share your screen?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, please. Right. I think I need to
It,
give some permission to
yes.
you. Make host. Yes, I made you as a co-host.
Okay.
Okay, please start your screen share so that it will be helpful for others also.
Yes, sir. So can you see my screen?
Yes, yes, I'm able to see it.
Yeah.
Okay, so where is your Ubuntu machine?
Okay, you are asking about AWS, right?
Yeah, yeah.
This is the one. So I have opened it, but now I closed it. Do you want me to open the instance and show you?
Okay, do you know the IP address, the username, and the PEM key of that thing?
No, I don't remember exactly. Maybe if you can give me a second, I'll do it.
Yeah, okay. Please take your time. No issues.
So yeah, this was the thing, I guess.
So I'm not able to see your screen. I think you have shared only the mobile external screen. Can you please reshare your screen?
Yeah, sure.
If you have any confidential things, you can close them.
Yeah, okay. So can you see my screen now?
Yeah.
So this is the instance.
Okay, that is the public IP address. Copy it. Go to your mobile external. Click on session. Click on SSH. Copy the address. Okay, specify what's the username. Is it Ubuntu?
Ubuntu. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay, make it. Then click on advanced SSH settings. Click on that use private key. Have you done this step?
Use private. Yes, yes, I have done this.
Okay, click on it. Where is okay? So I think you have given the same name. So that is the thing. Go to downloads again.
Sorry.
Docker KP March. Click on OK.
So this is what I'm getting.
Okay. So now go to your AWS.
Okay.
Okay. You do one thing. Okay, come down. So here go to security. Click on that security. Yes. Okay, click on that security groups. Okay, everything is allowed. Everything is allowed. That is fine. But have you created this in default VPC or you have created your own VPC?
I am not sure what you are asking. Like, I don't know.
Okay. Or else you do one thing. Go to EC2 dashboard in the left pane. Yeah. Click on instances. The first one. Okay. Here scroll it right. Scroll further. Okay. So now here you have uploaded the wrong key in mobile external. So which key you have downloaded? I think you have downloaded one key and we are uploading. That means you have used one key for this instance and you have uploaded another key. You got my point, right?
Okay.
So
So
here
you
the
mean
key
to,
name, yeah, that do you have the Docker underscore KP in our downloads?
no, I don't have that. I just have this Docker PEM file. That's it.
Where it came from?
Uh, which one? This Docker KP.
This Docker KP and some. I think it should be there in our machine, but you have deleted it. Am I right?
No. Actually, this is key pair creation, right? So while creating, I have given the name as Docker KP.
Okay, so when you have given that Docker KP, so
No.
when you have downloaded it, it should be something like Docker KP only, right? Why it is something like March and everything?
Okay. Maybe yeah. I remember I have deleted one thing. Maybe I have
Yeah,
deleted this key,
that's
I
the
guess.
problem. Yeah, you have uploaded the wrong key pair there. So that means the wrong pin key. Okay,
Okay.
that's the only reason. Okay,
Okay, sir.
yeah.
So one more thing, if I wanted to stop this instance, then how can I do it from here?
Okay, go left, click on that button, the check it in the
This,
left. Yeah, check it.
yeah.
You want to terminate it, you want to delete it, or you want to stop for some time.
Maybe I'll delete it and I'll create a new one. So
Okay, so click on that instance state. Uh, there, no, not there. So the
yeah.
after connect, yeah, click on it, terminate it.
Okay.
Okay, click on
Oh,
terminate. Okay,
okay.
yeah,
Yeah. Thank you so much.
okay. Now let's. Okay, friends, I'm sharing my screen. So what we have been discussing is how to download the Docker image from the container registry. So for that, we have a command called Docker pull command. So when we use Docker pull, the Docker image, which is there in the Docker hub, will be downloaded into our Docker host. Docker host is nothing but the machine in which Docker is installed. So the Docker has to be installed to create the containers. Okay, so containers are nothing but what? Virtual machines. Virtual machines. They are lightweight virtual machines. Now, in order to run the container from the image, we have a command called docker run. With that, container will be created from the Docker image. And we have learned how to remove the image. To remove the image, we have to stop the container. If you want to remove the image without stopping the container, you have to do it forcibly. For that, we have an option called F in the command. And we also learned how to name the container. For that, we have name flag. Okay, so those are things those we will be using frequently. Now let's learn few more commands. So Docker is already installed in my machine. I want to check it. So with that, we can check that Docker is installed. So we interact with the Docker daemon using Docker CLI, which will be installed by default when we install Docker in the machine. Okay, so that's fine. Let's play with few more commands today. I'm closing this Kubernetes notes. Okay, so these commands I put, these are the summary of the command, but I will explain during the course what, because for example, if you take this build, I cannot explain this now. I should not, because this command will be used when we have created the Docker file. From that, we will create the image. So whenever necessary, all these commands will be covered. Okay, so this command we have seen, and this command we have seen. And to start a container, the container is stopped. If you want to start the container again, we have to use start. To stop the running container, we have to use stop. To restart the container, After 10 seconds, you can do this. Okay, so we will also explore this. And to remove a container, we have to use remove. So this is to remove or delete a stopped container. What if we want to remove a running container? We have to use force option. We have already seen that. And if we want to stop all the running containers, we can use this stop. And this represents what? It will give the list of all the container IDs. Okay, so IDs of the all the container. To restart all containers, so you have to use this one. So this stands for, it will give the IDs of all the containers. So this restart command, what it does is it will restart all the containers. Okay, so that's the one thing. So now to remove all the stopped container, so to remove a single container, we have to use RM and we have to use container name or container ID. But this time what we want to do is we want to remove all the stopped container. For that we have to use this all thing. Okay, so remove this thing. So if you want to remove all the containers irrespective of whether they are running or in stopped state, you have to use force. Okay, so logs command we see, port we will inspect, Docker inspect, port we will see later, Docker inspect we have seen, you can give either the container name, container ID, or this inspect is there for every Docker object. That means this inspect is also there for network volume, and this image also we can use this. Okay, to go into the shell of a running container. So this we will discuss slowly. So now this also we will discuss and 4 moments. This we have seen. Okay, these are various options. We will explain one by one. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to pull Tomcat image. We want to pull Tomcat image. Docker search Tomcat. I'm just searching the image. If I do this, it will search the Docker hub for Tomcat. So if you see, these are all the images which are related to Tomcat. Okay, and the first two are the most widely used Docker images for Tomcat. So these are all official. These two are official and these are private ones. Okay, so these are also official only. I think they were verified. Some are official and some are not. Okay, so wherever okay is there, that means those are official. They have been created by the Docker, or they were verified images. Okay, so most probably we will be using first or the second one. Okay, so the Apache Tomcat is an open source implementation, so you can go to the description. How to go to the description? You can pull it, or you can go to the Docker hub and there we can read about the Tomcat image. Okay, that's fine. So let's pull that Tomcat image. Docker pull. Okay, Tom is also one of the image of Tomcat. So it's being pulled. So these are layers which we will understand slowly. So Docker image ls or Docker images, we have downloaded the image. This is just an image. What we need to do, we have to create a container. So if we create a container, this Tomcat server will be running inside the container. Container you can think of as a box. Inside that box, the application will be running. So that means this application will be running in an isolated environment. Okay, that is nothing but the container. So now let's run the container. Docker run is the command to run the container. Generally, it is Docker container run. Okay, even if you don't specify container, that's fine, because by default it will be considering that it's container. Okay, so this run is there for to create the container only. Docker run. How do you want to name that container? Let's name it as my Tomcat. Anything you can give. You can give C1, C2, A1, A2, any a name you can give. Okay, so now let's name it as Tomcat server. this is the container name. That means once the container is created, we want to give this name to that particular container. And even if you don't give this name, that is fine. Some random name will be allocated by the Docker for that particular container. And every container and every image will be having some unique ID. Okay, so this is fine. We want to run a container and we want to name that container as Tomcat server. And the most important thing is we have to give the image name like this. Okay, there is no something like hyphen image something. It's not there in this. Okay, so directly we have to give that. So at the end it has to be put. Then after that, I don't want to get the logs on the console. So I want to push this container to the background. That means I want to detach the container from the foreground so that I will be able to execute the next command. So I'm using -d option, which stands for detached mode. Okay, so now with that, Tomcat container will be running. How much time it took? Within a second, within less than a second. So the Tomcat server is up and it's running. It is up 9 seconds ago. Docker logs. We want to see the logs. We have to use this name or this name. This is the image name. Okay, if you give this, it will fail. Okay, because this logs command is there for containers only, not for images. So we have to give either the container name or the container ID we have to give. So I'm giving the container name. So these are the logs the Tomcat. Okay, so it's fine. Now what we have done is, this is our Docker host machine. We have pulled the Tommy image and we have executed it. Okay, once we executing, I mean to say, when we run a container, so from that a container is created. And what's the name of that image? Name of the image is Tommy. Name of the container is Tomcat server. Okay, and by default, every container will be assigned with an internal IP address or the private IP address, which is available only inside the Docker host. So that means you can't access this Tomcat server with that particular IP address, because that IP address is internal IP address for this particular container. How do we check that IP address? Every container will be assigned with the IP address. Okay, this is the command to get the list of running containers. I want to inspect it. Inspect Tomcat server. Okay, so this, of course, we will deal with this network section also. Okay, but for time being, forget about that. If you see here, we have IP address which is in the IPv4 format. This is the IP address of the container. Okay, this is the IP address of this container. And this is internal IP address, friends. We can't use this IP address externally to access the Tomcat. Okay, so that is fine. Now this Tomcat is running inside the Docker host. So, but we need to access this Tomcat server from outside of the host. That means I want to access the Tomcat from the browser, which is external to the Docker host machine. For that, what we need to do is we have to perform port mapping. What we need to do? We have to perform port mapping. What does it mean by performing port mapping? Okay, so now if you observe, and we know that for this Ubuntu machine, which we are calling as Docker host, because Docker is running inside this machine, a public IP address there for it. Okay, this is the public IP address of my Docker host machine. This is the public IP address of this machine. Now, if we hit this service, if you hit the IP address, the request will go to the host. Okay, of course, we did not make any server inside this. So this IP address is there for the Docker host machine, and this IP address is what? Public IP address. That means it is publicly accessible. So that's why we are able to connect to that machine using its public IP address when we are using session. Here we are providing the remote host. Okay, that can be public IP address or the public DNS. Here the public DNS will also be available for us. So this is public IPv4 DNS. Okay, this also we can use here to connect to it. Okay, in this place we can use the DNS name as well. Okay, so now this container is running inside the Docker host and it is having the private IP address. And we can't access the Tomcat server from my local machine, which is external to this Docker host. So to access this Tomcat server, what we need to do is we have to forward the port. Okay, so that is called as port mapping. So port mapping means what we will do is we will open a port. Okay, so we will open a port. All the ports are open as of now, but what we will do is we will map the port. We will map some port of the Docker host machine to the port of the Tomcat. Okay, so first we need to know the Tomcat server port. What is the Tomcat server port? So if you see Docker PS Docker, see here, what's the port of the Tomcat? This is 8080. Okay, so but now let me remove it. I'm removing that container forcibly. So we don't know what's the port of that particular Tomcat container. So for that, what we need to do is go to Docker Hub. Okay, search for Tommy image or Tomcat image. Okay, so this is the actual one. So here, if you go and see, port will be mentioned. Okay, somewhere. So this is 8080 is the Tomcat server port. What is this port? We will learn. So this is the port of the a Tomcat server. Okay, so even if you go to Tomcat official website also, uh, you will be knowing that that is the port of the Tomcat server on which Tomcat is listening. Okay, so this is the port. What's the port of this Tomcat server? That is, this is 8080. So now, but if what does it mean is we can access the Tomcat server with the IP address of the container with its port. So that means 172.170.0.2:8080. With that address, this Tomcat is accessible. Okay, internally. Okay, so now let's see that. Now I'm creating the Tomcat image again, Tomcat content again. So now what I will do is, let's get the IP address of it. Docker inspect Tommy. I'm using grep command here. Grep IP. Sorry, not this is the image name. We have to give what? Tomcat server. We have to give this. So here somewhere, yeah, this is the IP address. This is the IP address. Let's call it what's the port 8080. So the Tomcat is accessible. The Tomcat server is accessible. But can I use the same IP here and 8080? No, because that is the private IP address. That is not publicly accessible. Okay, so I want to access that from my local browser. What we need to do? We have to perform port mapping. So that means we have to map the port of the container with the Docker host port. Okay, so we have to map it. So for this, we have to choose the Docker host port. Okay, so now this is 8080. We don't need to use the same port on the Docker host. We can specify anything. So what we will do is let's use 9090. Okay, this port we are using. That means if we hit the public IP address of the Docker host machine, friends, are you getting any disturbance from my side? Nikhil or Kavya?
No, Laxman.
Okay, so okay, that's fine. So this is 9090. So that means now we can access this Tomcat server, which is running inside the container in the Docker host. Okay, by using the public IP address of the host and its port. So now we have to perform this port mapping. This design we have to make. How to do that? For that, we have an option called P. We have an option. So now let's remove this image. That's fine. So we don't need to pull image every time. The image is already available. So now one thing is, even we don't need to pull the image explicitly. What I will do is I'm removing this image. Docker RMI. So what's the image name? Tommy. Okay, so that image got removed. Okay, still what I want to do is I want to run the container. What I said earlier is, if we want to run a container, we need to have the image, and that image should be downloaded into the Docker host machine. To download that, we are using Docker pull command. But now what I'm doing, I did not download the image, but I want to try to run the container from this image. And this image is not downloaded into the host, but it is available in the Docker Hub, which is a public Docker container registry. Okay, so now I did not download the Tommy image in my local, but still I want to run I'm trying to run the container from it. Now see what will happen. So here, what it is saying is unable to find this Tommy image locally. So if it is not found, that means if the image is not downloaded already into the Docker host, it will go and consult Docker Hub, and from there it will download the image. After downloading, container will be created and that container will be named like this. Now let's check Docker images. Docker image is present because to run the container, we need to have the image locally present. If the locally it's not present, the Docker will try to fetch it from Docker Hub. Okay, so of course we will deal with the private container registries also. There it will be a different mechanism. We have to authenticate to the registry, then only the Docker will be able to download the image from the private container registry. So the run command will perform the pull command inherently. Okay, so if the image is not there, what this run is what Docker will do is Docker will first try to find the image locally. Because that image is not there, it will go and fetch from the Docker Hub, and once that is downloaded, the container will be created. Now we should have the Docker PS. Okay, this is fine. But I have to explain this port mapping. Okay, this is what we are trying to do. So I have removed the image. Okay, that's fine. But what will happen? Image will be still there. I want to remove the image as well. Okay, that's fine. Image got deleted. Okay, so there is no container. So we have to use an A to check whether any container is in exited state. Now what I want to do is I want to access the Tomcat server over the public IP address of the host so that I can access this Tomcat server from anywhere in the world. Okay, so I have to do this port mapping. How to do that? Now let me explain. Docker run. I want to name the server as Tomcat server. Okay, Tomcat server. Then we have to provide the image. At the end, I'm providing that. I have to run the detached mode so that I will be able to run other commands here. Then after that, how to perform this port mapping? To perform this port mapping and to be specific, to perform manual port mapping. When I'm saying manual, there should be automatic way as well. That also we will see. To perform port mapping, to perform manual port mapping, we have to use -p in the command. What we have to do, we have to use P. P stands for port. Okay, so now what we need to do is, what is the port of the Docker host to which you want to map the container port? This is a 9090 port. What port we are giving here? Everything is written here, friends. Okay, so this is the Tomcat port and this is the host port. Okay, so see, this is the thing I have clearly explained. Later we should not confuse. Okay, so first I have to write which port? This port. That is what 9090. This is the port of the Docker host. Then after that, use colon to map the container port. What's the container port here? 8080. How do you know that port? You have to go to the official documentation, or else if you use Docker inspect the image name, there also you will find the port of the Tomcat. So this is how we will perform the port mapping, and more specifically the manual port mapping. So manual port mapping in the sense, we are manually choosing the port of the Docker host. Okay, so this port we are specifically mentioning, we are explicitly mapping the port of the container to this particular port of the Docker host. So that's why we are calling this as manual. So now hit enter. Because the Tommy image is not present locally, it is trying to pull the image. Once the image is pulled, the container will be created and the container will be named as Tomcat server and the port mapping will be done. So that means now I can access this Tomcat server by this IP address. What is this IP address? This IP address is nothing but the public IP address of this machine. And what's the port? 9090. We have to use this port, not this one, friends. 9090. Tomcat server is successfully running. How much time it took to launch the Tomcat server? Of course, to download the image, some amount of time, 1 or 2 seconds was taken, but that should not be considered. Okay, so in how much time the Tomcat server was launched using containers? Okay, and go and check in non-container world how much time it will take for the Tomcat server to be up. So I'm pinging this IP address along with the port in the chart. Please, all of you try to access and tell me whether you are able to access it or not. So then only I can confirm that this port mapping is done, and it is confirmed here itself, but please try to access and see whether you are able to access it or not. Hit it in your browser. Lenin, Shanmugapriya Lenin.
Yeah, I'm able to hit the link, sir. I'm able to get.
Okay, you are able to get. Your name is Lenin, Priya, or
My
what?
name is Shanmuga Priya. You can call me Priya.
Okay, who is Lenin then?
My husband's name.
Oh, nice. Okay. Okay, you are able to access the Tomcat server, right?
Yes.
Okay. Prasad, Kavya, Nikhil.
Yes, Laxman. I'm able to access Tomcat website.
Okay, you are able to access, that's fine. Prasad is also able to access, but you understood how to port mapping, right? How to perform the port mapping. Okay, that's fine. Now what I want to do is I want to run Nginx container and I want to access it something like we are accessing this Tomcat. Okay, so for that, what we need to do is Docker run. I want to name the container. Let's name it as my Nginx. Okay, then I want to run this in detached mode. Then we have to perform port mapping. Now this time, what I'm doing is I'm using capital P. Okay, let's use small p only for one more example. Okay, small p. Now what we have to mention? We have to mention the port of the Docker host. Okay, now we are trying to access another container with another port. Okay, so now let's make it here. Okay, now let's use 8080 port. And please do remember that this 8080 port is different from this. Okay, this is entirely different. This is a container port and this is a host port. So now let's run the Tomcat, Nginx container, and let's name it as my Nginx. Then what's the port of the Nginx? So that we need to know first, right? Okay, so for that, what I will do is instead of going and checking in the Docker hub, so Docker inspect Nginx, it will fail because there is no such object. We have to pull the image to inspect the image. Docker pull Nginx. Docker inspect Nginx, and somewhere see exposed ports of the container. This is 80. Okay, so this is if the multiple ports are exposed, then we can get the list here. So only one port is exposed, and we can confirm that this is the port by which that Nginx server will be accessible. Okay, so now if you go to the documentation, there also it will be given. Okay, so this is the simple thing where I can inspect the image. Now what I will do is I will run the container Docker run name my Nginx. Okay, I want to do it in, I want to run this container in detached mode, and then perform port mapping. So what port we wanted to use? This is a 8080 port. And what's the actual port of this one? This is 80. So which port we have to first we have to write? This is the port of the host, and this is the port of the container, and we have to mention the image at the end. Okay, so now you will be getting some doubt whether they should be written first or they should be written first. Okay, these are options you can interchange. You can write this D here as well. That is fine. Okay, hit enter. So with that, Nginx server is up. You can check the logs using logs. Okay, so now let's access it. 8080. See, we are able to access the Nginx. This is fine. Now, let's understand one more very important command, that is exec. So now let's list out the containers that are running in my host. These are the containers. Now you may be getting some doubt. How many containers I can run simultaneously? You can run hundreds of containers in the same host, provided that sufficient resources are available in your machine. So that means in order to run the containers, where the container will get the CPU and memory, they will utilize the memory and CPU of the host machine. Okay, so as long as there is enough resources on the host. You can run as many containers as you want. Of course, in Kubernetes, you will see that's fine. Then let's see Docker port Tomcat server. So if you see, this is port under command, port to command. So where you can see the port, the port of the Tomcat server. Okay, so Docker port. This way also can see Docker port. So why it's showing error? Because there is no container called nginx. We have the image called nginx, but we don't have the container. So what's the container name we have given? Nginx. So this is the port of the container. So this is the container port, and this is the host port. This is the container port. This is the host port. Okay. Now, but I want to tell you the command which I wanted to do. Docker executive. What I want to do is what really, if you remember in the picture. So this is nothing but what? The content is nothing but what? Say lightweight virtual machine. That means it's an Ubuntu machine. This is a Linux machines only. These are lightweight Linux machines only. Okay. So if it's a Linux machine, we should be able to interact with its shell. We should be able to interact with its shell. How to interact with the container shell? Okay. So if you are aware of this nginx, you should be knowing that this page is somewhere written in the nginx. Okay, in the machine somewhere the file with this content is written. Okay, so now I want to go and modify this content. Okay, so for that I need to go inside the container. I have to interact with the container file system. So for that we need to open container shell. For that we have command called docker exec. That means execute in interactive mode. Okay, exec -it. Can give something like -t also, but together we can give -it. It stands for interactive mode. Okay, so we want to interact with what? With the container. Which container? My nginx container. Okay, my nginx container, and we have to specify the shell here. Okay, bash. Please observe the shell. Generally we are having, this is the host shell. Now once we execute this command, see, now we are into the container shell. We are into the container shell. So what is it? This is a container ID. Okay, so if you see, so what is it? This is the container ID of the my nginx content. Okay, the same thing is here. Okay, so now we are into the shell of the container. We're inside the shell of the container. We are not inside the shell of our Docker host. We are not inside this. We are inside the container. Which container? This container. Okay, so now let's see the list of files in that container. So these are the, I'm just using ls command. So these are the list of files and the directories that are there in the particular directory in which we have landed. So now still I'm into container shell only. Now I want to modify. Now in this container we can create files. Touch file1.txt. You can do it. We can echo something to the output. Okay, got it. So now what I want to do is I want to go to this particular file. Okay, if you are aware of this nginx, okay, so you must be knowing what is the path. etc cd, not this one, friends. User share in this we have to go to Nginx. Okay, so we have to go to this folder, that means that directory. Then we have to go to HTML. Okay, so this is the content. I'm catting it. So cat means it will display the file content. So this is the content that we are seeing here. Okay, so I want to modify it. I want to modify it. Okay, so now so what it is saying, bi command is not found. For that, what we need to do, we have to install that. If something is not available in the Linux, what we do, using the package managers, we will install that software. Now I want to install vi editor in this. For that, first what we need to do is, these things I'm doing in the container, please do remember that. Okay, now we have to update the package repository. What is the package repository? This is a Linux a container. So I should have apt update. I'm updating the package repository, and after that apt install vi. Okay, bin or bin editor. I'm auto uploading it. So here it will be installed. That is installed in the container. Now let's open this file. See, now this file is open. Now I'm modifying this container. I'm modifying this content. Okay. So now let's write it as welcome to Docker classes or welcome to container world. Okay. I'm saving it, closing it. Now let's exit from here. Now what I'm trying to do is I want to exit from the container shell. So before exiting, now let's refresh and see. Okay. It's not updated. What I will do is okay, that's fine. Let's exit from here. Okay, in order to get these changes reflected, we have to restart the container. Okay, so Docker restart my engine. It's not responding. Yeah, that got restarted. Now let's see. So see, this is up 5 seconds ago. Something I'm missing. Why the content is not being updated here? Even we don't need to restart it, friends. Maybe user Linux HTML PI index.html. Yeah, that is there, but why it's not being very strange? It's strange. Let's do one thing. Let's open new incognito window. I'm not believing it.
Laxman, that welcome to Nginx is header. So you modify title, not header, I think.
Oh, okay. I think, yeah, see, as you said, are you able to see welcome to container world, right? Here, when I hover the mouse here, you are able to see that, right? The tab name. Nikhil, so please go on unmute for some time.
Yes, I'm able to see that title.
Yeah, so now what we will do is, now let's modify that thing. Okay, so that's why I think it is. So even we don't need to restart the container. So we have to use bash at the end. Sorry, in hurry. So now what I will do is ed user share nginx html pay index html. Yes, title was changed, but not this. Now let's change this as well. Welcome to Docker and Kubernetes. So that we will distinguish that thing and this thing. Now let's refresh it. See, this is. So now if I give this to you, please any one of you hit and tell me. So now you should be able to access two things. Earlier, the Tomcat server is also running and the Nginx is also running, and both are running in the same host, but they are changed with respect to the ports only, because we have mapped this port of the container with this port of the host and this with this port of the host. Okay. So are you able to access that Nginx, which is updated with our own content? Kavya, Lenin, sorry, Priya.
Yeah, we are able to access.
Yeah, great. So you understood that. So now let's discuss the automatic port mapping and we will close the session. So if you observe in manual port mapping, where is it? Okay, so here we are explicitly providing the port of the Docker host to which we want to map the port of the container. So this port of the host we are choosing manually. Okay, so now I want to run another container, the same Nginx I want to run, and we have to modify the name of this. Okay, the container, we can't have two containers with the same name. Okay, so now I'm creating different Nginx container and the container name I'm giving this. Then D, that's then I want to perform automatic port mapping. For that we have to use hyphen capital P. Capital P represent automatic port mapping. When we are doing automatic port mapping, we should not mention the ports here. What will happen is, by default, the Docker knows that the port of the Nginx is 80. Okay, that is known to the Docker. We don't need to tell it. And what it does is in automatic port mapping, so it will pick some random port for the host. Okay, and it will map that container port that is 80. This is another container we are running. And this container name is what? My Nginx GINX 2. Okay, so this port is already opened. This is 80. Okay, how to open this port we will learn during the Docker file. Okay, so now, and this is already image which is created. So when they were creating the image, they have already opened that port. So once we inspect the Docker image, then we will understand that. So now in automatic port mapping, we don't mention this port explicitly here. Okay, so we should not. Now let's hit enter. So with that, what happens is, see here, I want to reduce this thing so that I want to get everything in single line. See, but still we are unable to get it. See here, this is this is image name, friends. These are the image names. These are the containers. So this is the my Nginx. This is my Nginx 2. So earlier we have chosen this 8080 port. So that's why we are able to access it over 8080. Now we have performed manual automatic port mapping where we did not specify this port. So this will be automatically assigned. So which port assigned? 32768. 32768. Okay, this is the port. This is assigned by the Docker. So now we will be able to access this Nginx server with this port 32768. See, this is the Nginx. Okay. If you want to modify this content, we have to go to this container. Docker check it into my Nginx to bash. Okay. So here vi we have to install again because this is a different container, right? So what I want to do is echo all. This is automatic port mapping. Okay. Of course, it may not be meaningful. So now user shared Nginx HTML index. I want to override this content. I'm just using basic Linux command only. That's fine. Let's see. This is the content. Okay, this is the second container and this is the first container, and this is running on 8080 port through manual port map. We have chosen this port, but here we allowed the Docker to choose its port. So 32768 was chosen. That's it for today, friends. If you have any questions, you can ask me. Otherwise, we can wind up this session. So on Monday, link will be changed and demo classes classes will be continued. Okay, so from this concept we will be continuing, but people who have paid, they will only be eligible for the Monday's class. Okay, so new link will be sent to your mobile who have already paid it. If you did not pay, so please pay it tomorrow so that you will be eligible for the classes. Yeah, any doubts in this session, friends? You can ask me. No doubts, right? Okay. Thank you. Enjoy your Sunday. Bye. Tomorrow there is no class. We will meet again on Monday. Bye, all of you.
Thanks, Lakshman. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.